So my name is Greg Meyers. I work for LaBarre Oksnee Insurance. We are an insurance agency that specializes in HOA insurance, specifically planned unit developments, residential condos, commercial condos, pretty much anything in the common interest development space is what we focus on. I've been with the company for just over 11 years. My title is Senior Account Executive. I operate a lot like a producer, so I'm kind of on the front lines with the clientele. And so that's a little bit about me. Cyber Liability provides HOAs with a combination of coverage options to protect from data breaches and other types of cybersecurity issues. So it covers both first and third party financial losses, as well as the loss of transferred funds, computer fraud, and cyber extortion, which we will cover in more detail later on. And then whom does it cover? It covers board members, the property manager, volunteers, committee members, and the association as a whole. So really anybody that's involved in the association would be a covered party. So every community association that conducts business over the internet, they store data on servers or simply using emails is at risk. Personally identifying information of residents and employees, such as names, addresses, bank accounts, social security numbers, driver's license numbers, credit card numbers, makes and models of their cars are frequently held in those computer systems. And so companies with which they have contractual relationships with, so that data that's stored on those computers is always at risk. So if a board member or a committee member or an employee or managing agent uses computers and mobile devices in their daily works, the association has a significant cyber exposure. And so if this information is breached, it could do one of the following things. It could put the community association members at risk for identity theft of their own personal information. It could cost the association money via a loss of funds, a compensation to members, or penalties of some sort. It could interrupt the business of the community association. It could damage the reputation of the community association, and it could put the community association at risk for a potential lawsuit because of this. Sure. So for cyber liability, most management companies are required to carry this because of the mass amount of data that they're storing on behalf of the associations that they manage. So if the information of some individual homeowners was to be taken hostage or used for someone else's financial gain, and that information was taken from the management company system side, that would need to be covered under the cyber liability for the property management company. Now, if the information was taken from, say, a board member's computer while they were working on that computer on their own personal network, and somebody hacked in, got control of that network, then that would fall under the HOA cyber liability because that falls under that particular board member's control. And that basically happened as a result of the HOA information being taken via the board member. So if a contract, for example, like a management agreement or a management contract mandates that the HOA indemnify the management company for cyber incidents that emanate from the HOA, cyber liability coverage, it would be the way to fund the indemnity agreement. So that's why it's required in a lot of those contracts. And that's why management companies such as First Service and other big name management companies require that the HOAs that they manage carry that cyber liability insurance, because it works as a way to fund that indemnity agreement. So there's four key components to cyber liability coverage. The first one is social engineering. So what I'll do is I'll go into a little bit of detail on each, and then I'll give you kind of a real world example. So the first one is social engineering. So it uses phone calls or emails or texts to convince people to hand over sensitive information or money. So the social engineer pretends to be someone in authority who requests information or payment, and someone, especially someone who is inexperienced, may feel obligated to comply with that request. So it's basically someone, pretending to be somebody else, trying to get money. And so a real world example of that is, let's say a board treasurer receives an email from someone pretending to be the association's contractor, requesting a wire transfer payment for repair work that was recently completed. The email looks legitimate. The treasurer wires $50,000 to the account of the social engineer. So that's the first example of something that could potentially happen in an HOA type of environment. The second one is ransomware. So ransomware is a type of malware that encrypts a victim's files. So hackers often send fraudulent emails with a link to click on, and then fake invoices are usually the most common disguise for sending ransomware or other malware. So once somebody clicks on that link, the malware is downloaded onto the computer. And if the victim's computer is linked to a shared server, all the files on that server may be encrypted. So the hacker would then demand a ransom payment to free the files up, essentially. So a real world example would be a board member in a gated community clicked on a phony email attachment and her files were encrypted. One file the hacker encrypted was the gate access system. So the gates were locked down, no one can get it in and out of the community until the association had paid the ransom. So that's a good example of something that could happen. The third one is lost or stolen laptops. So laptops are used by community managers and board members, and they may not have adequate security protocols. It really just depends on the sophistication of the computer for that community manager or board member. Not everybody has the right security features in place. And so a real world example is a property manager leaves her laptop in her car while she ran a quick errand. Someone broke into her car and stole the laptop. The homeowner's protected personal information for all the associations she managed was put at risk, and the management company had to incur notification expense for every owner potentially impacted. The fourth and final component is email errors. So while hackers and cyber criminals pose a substantial threat, there are also situations in which there's an honest mistake that may result in some kind of potential lawsuit. So selecting reply all or inadvertently letting autofill complete the wrong email address could result in the release of some kind of sensitive information that ended up in the wrong person's hands. So a real world example of that is in preparation for an upcoming meeting, the board secretary completed an agenda that included information on a medical condition one of the other board members was dealing with. So this information was personal and was for the board's eyes only. However, the secretary accidentally clicked the wrong distribution list. And so the agenda went out to the entire association, not just the board or committee members. So that board member would then in turn get sued for, breach of privacy or something along those lines. So the cost, it ranges. So it depends on the type of policy that you buy. Some directors and officers and crime carriers will actually include a small layer of cyber liability coverage within those policies, but it's not as comprehensive and it doesn't always include those first and third party coverages. So if you're getting a separate standalone cyber policy, you can usually expect to pay anywhere from $250 up to $1,500 to $1,800, just depending on the limit that is selected. So if you want to get something lower in the $250,000 range, you're looking at $250 to $500. If you're looking for a higher limit, maybe $1 million, you're looking at closer to $1,500 or maybe a little north of that. All right, well, thank you everybody for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to put this video together. If you would like to reach out to me direct, I can be reached via email at Greg M, that's GREGM, at HOA-insurance.com. Thanks again.